Hello, and welcome to another episode of Punch Drunk Nerd, your friendly nerd neighborhood friends. It's me, Luis Gonzalez, and...
Beau.
That's right, and unfortunately Miguel is not with us, but we're praying for you. We hope you're doing well, and we'll see you next week. He's not dead, but, you know, we're just wishing him well. He's here in spirit, exactly. Welcome to another episode where we're going to talk about nerd shit. This week, we're going to talk about Guardians of the Galaxy. We're going to talk about Beau is Afraid. We're going to talk about Succession. And then, of course, we're also going to have some news topics, the big one being the writer's strike, as well as a few other trailers. So I think we're just going to get right into the news and talk about this damn writer's strike that happened.
Yeah, this darn strike.
Yeah.
Yeah, tell us all about it, Luis. It's got us worried.
Yeah, the writer's strike is basically people are wondering, like, what are they striking for? What's going on? There's a couple big components. One of them being is compensation. Obviously, inflation's gone up, but compensation is a lot more complicated than that because what's happening now is we are entering into a streaming service era. So in broadcast, you had a writer's room. So a bunch of people were able to stay on for a couple weeks, doing a writer room, breaking out 20 episodes, constantly being there for rewrites. And even after the show is shot, they're still there for on-set writing, for changes, especially for comedy. And in post-production, the writers will also be there to kind of create any more new lines that they might do with ADR, doing voiceover work that kind of gets slugged in post. So that was the standard. And you would be able to get residuals based on all of those shows being released. With 20 episodes, you'll be getting all these residuals coming back and forth with the writer's room, with all this. There was this whole orchestration and way of surviving as a writer that anyone could come up in. And if you're in the writer's room, you have an opportunity to rise in the ranks and to get to know everybody and to potentially have your own show. And that's what a lot of people did with in Saturday Night Live or in 30 Rock. These people who, you know, were in the writer's room were able to break out and do their own show. Like in 30 Rock, there was a writer who broke out and did Good News. It was like an awesome comedy. And she's doing Girls 5 Eva. She's doing that as well.
Oh, yeah.
No, I think she's doing that. Or maybe it's somebody else. Sorry. Anyway, the point is that now that we're in streaming, we're seeing that episodes are a lot shorter, 8 episodes, 12 episodes. And, you and me are feeling it. This whole society is becoming a gig economy where, people are getting DoorDash, Uber Eats, TaskRabbit, all of these things where you're getting paid for the day. You're getting paid just for that one thing, and then you're moving on. So here, producers and the movie industry and everyone is starting to treat writers as such, where, we have a write-up. We don't need you for the whole show. Can you just come in for a day? Can you just come in for a week? And then that's it. And no residuals, no nothing. We're just going to pay you for your time. And
like a hourly based.
Yeah, like a daily based kind of situation. Yeah, exactly. And because of that, they're creating these mini rooms where the writers come in, rework a script, and then they're done. And then they give it to the actual showrunner who takes it and adjusts it. And all of this is a way to
and the credit, right?
And the credit too, yeah. And this is a way for the production companies and the studios to save money on things like this. Incentivizing, and they're incentivizing writers to be like, hey, if you just write this yourself, we'll give you $10,000, $20,000 more, because to them they're thinking, well, if I just give this writer a boost, I don't have to spend more money on all these other writers giving them residuals, blah blah blah. And so they're just saying, hey, you can't keep us out of the writer's room. You can't just make us gig workers. It's already hard enough to survive in LA that we rely on these residuals. And, some people, they go for a shoot. I just know this because Sarah, she's on a shoot. She gets, $1,000 a day for being on set. And you're like, wow, that's a lot of money. I wish I could make that money. But then you got to think that she's fighting for these roles for months. And it's not like she's doing it every single day, And so that's why they're a kind of a bigger price, because you need to survive. And so people pay these bigger funds. And so they're kind of getting weaseled out of these things. So they want to say, hey, we need to have a writer's room. You need to keep us on for more than a day, especially for comedy stuff. You need to pay us weekly and not at the end of the job, because what they'll do is they'll hold the paycheck until they kind of have them finish the script. And so that's one of the big things is pay us more and have a writer's room. And a big talking point that's going out there right now is look at how much all these CEOs are making. Look how much David Zaslav, look how much Bob Iger, all of these people are getting all of this money when these salary boosts, when that money could go to writers.
Right. And speaking of that, it's not like these CEOs and heads of these studios are doing the best of jobs in a lot of cases. Like, how many bosses have we seen go through HBO and Warner Brothers in the last decade alone? How many, like, you know, Star Wars or Disney rather, you know, it's the same thing. It's just, but those guys make hundreds of millions of dollars in a year.
Yeah,
you know, and all they're having to do is just like, let's do a remake.
I know. And this is the thing. It's like they don't want to fill the rooms. Like, oh, we don't need that many writers. Well, you know what? We don't need that many executive producers. You know, attaching themselves on it, getting paid an insurmountable amount of money.
Yeah, like we were talking about our box office predictions.
Yeah.
For the summer, and I think Miguel pointed out that most of what we were talking about were either, you know, franchise pieces, sequels, prequels. Very, 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 very few like original content out there. You know, maybe like Barbie and Oppenheimer. Oppenheimer based off of real life figure, and then Barbie based off of a toy figure.
Yeah,
you know, it's still a brand though.
There's nothing just coming from nothing. And, you know,
exactly.
Yeah, the only thing I can think of is the Robert Rodriguez film Hypnotic with Ben Affleck.
Ben Affleck, yeah, and you know that's already been kind of shimmied under the radar there.
Yeah, it really has.
So yeah, it's no, I mean the differences there. I mean, it goes across all kinds of industries, but obviously we're talking about the film industry exclusively right now. But yeah, I mean, it's a reflection of a lot of what's going on right now, and what these strikes tend to at least bring to light are those like vast differences in pay and comfort between in roles that you would think would actually be more rewarding. You think writers of a show, you think, oh, that's a big deal. Like you wrote a show, you wrote a movie, or you contributed to a series, you know, like that should be a big deal, especially like you were saying, when people have a tough time getting work, at least in the profession that they're looking for out in LA. It's a very contentious business. And yeah, I don't imagine security comes around, like job security is easy to find, honestly. Like,
and it's more difficult to find now when you're getting gigged for a day or two or a week to clean up a script and you're not invited on set. You know, writers, people in the writer's room are able to be on set to make changes. And they really limit that to just one person, to the showrunner. And so there's no room for people to rise up in the ranks. And that's like that's what we're all doing here. We're all trying to rise up the ranks to do our own shit. And, you know, it leaves only the rich writers who are able to really write and
established.
Like you can like really, for you to be a good writer, like to be an established writer that's making money, you have to already be making money and rich, not leaving room for other people, also not removing, you know, that type of insight and lifestyle that could go into a writer's room. Another big thing that was in contention was AI. So they threw it in there saying, hey, you know, we would like AI to not replace writers. We don't want AI to write up these scripts. We don't want to rewrite what AI puts out. You know, so if they put it in, we want a romantic comedy in Paris, 2 missing lovers, blah blah blah. Make a script. We don't want to, and then ChatGPT or whatever spits out, you know, this AI script. They don't want to be a part of that as well. And we thought this would be a non-issue, but immediately they're like, no, we just did decline that. We want to talk about it every 3 years, to talk 1 to 3 years to talk about the, you know, the potential evolution of AI, which is just bullshit because they'll get to the meeting and like, well, AI is growing. See ya. So they really have to like, this is important because they have to nip in the bud a lot of things to say, hey, this is a huge precedent. ChatGPT is blowing up. AI is blowing up. I mean, we're seeing it through visuals. You know, Snapchat just released their own AI thing on their platform that you can talk to. So if it's becoming so easily accessible, you know that the companies are working on this. And from what I listened to on a couple podcasts is that they're already trying to work it in, create scripts from books in public domain. So they're taking those books in public domain and trying to get AI adapting them into a script.
Ugh,
so,
man.
And let's see, what else?
If I may, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, go for it.
No, just on the AI front, that podcast I was telling you about from Empire Online, the Empire podcast, they had an interview with Joe Russo of the Russo brothers, and he was kind of laying out kind of bleak idea, similar to what you were just saying, like punch in an order for a movie, essentially, and saying all the things you want. And we're already kind of seeing it with we've been seeing these like Wes Anderson videos.
We post that shit all the time in our podcast, on our
we do.
Stories,
I mean, but like it's eerily realistic, and also it seems almost like effortless. And but not beyond that, they're also taking people's identities. Like you see, like Bill Murray and stuff show up, without their
consent,
approval, and that it's like that kind of questions like that. That's the gray area about AI, and AI should, if created, be there to serve people and not to replace people.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, across so many industries, is this like an actual threat as far as just like jobs are concerned. Where like I was seeing, there was like Wendy's in one state that they were replacing workers with just like computers and machines, and it's like but there's no accountability for what happens to the employee at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And if we don't draw that line now, like
Absolutely.
through the writer's strike, this is just like one example, but this is going to be happening across all kinds of industries, and this is why it's important that the WGA is like taking this fight. I mean, not just with the AI problem, but beyond that. But similarly, like that is like a big issue that's coming faster than we realize. Each year.
It really does. Like you're starting to see those commercials. Like I asked AI to make me a beer commercial, and you're like, wait, what? Now they can actually like put this together.
You're taking,
you know what I mean? Like I was fine with the visuals, but now they're actually creating motion. And I mean, honestly, you're right. In 3 years, 5 years, this thing will really be a lot more sophisticated. And we're seeing the cusp of what's to come in the future. And this couldn't have come at a perfect time, this writer's strike, because AI is really coming out of its hole, and we really need to nip it in the butt, because whatever happens here could reflect what happens everywhere else. I think they could say,
absolutely.
well, if this company can get away with it, then so can we. And there needs to be a place where,
and they'll see the wealthy people at the top will see the profits.
Yeah,
because you know what, people more often than not are going to go with convenience over inconvenience, which is a huge part of lifestyle is.
Well, the studios we keep saying here in the studios, like Warner Brothers, Disney, they're all in debt, so they're trying to save money too. But then you have these CEOs who have tons of money, and so it is really important for this to get figured out. And I think the writers are saying no AI at all. The movie industry, the Alliance of Motion Pictures and Television Producers, that's who their WGA is fighting against. They're saying no, we like to have it. So there could be a world where there is some, limitations.
There'll probably be a divide,
where they'll say, okay, but you can only have it for this and not for that, kind of situation because I don't know. It's going to be, and I think this is the thing where the DGA, the Directors Guild, and SAG, the Screen Actors Guild. I know SAG people coming together already to support the writers.
Yeah.
But their discussions are coming up in June and July as well. And so there have been some murmurs of like, okay, are the DGA or the SAG, are they going to go under strike? Are they going to be under support? Or are they going to shut this whole thing down? And it's really hard because some studios at this point, what I've heard is that they may not mind the strike because it allows them to cut off any projects that they didn't want to fund in the first place. Ugh. So they have these projects in the lineup. They're like, oh, what a perfect opportunity to cut cords and say, bye-bye, we're not doing that project anymore because of the quote-unquote strike. Right. And they're kind of free out their budget for other stuff. And starving them out, making sure how far they can go, because the strike only pertains to United States narratives. So when we're talking about reality, I think animation as well. We're talking international, Canada, Australia, UK. These people, they're allowed to continue. Netflix is a global company that they're able to pull all these resources from. They have all these ability. But I did hear that the writers in England are also standing in solidarity. I don't know if they're completely on strike, but I think they said they're not going to work with like American studios on certain campaigns. I haven't looked too much into it. I kind of just saw it, but I thought that's really good. And then one last thing that they're going to talk about is kind of numbers and transparency. Netflix and Apple and Prime, a lot of these streaming services don't want to reveal their numbers because that will, I don't know, that it'd be a detriment to them because everybody will know what really they're cooking. Yeah. And somebody brought up a good point that, hey, Netflix is going to need money. Netflix is talking about adding an ad tier program, and you can bet that the sponsors who are putting ads into Netflix are going to be like, no, I need to see the numbers. I need to see the numbers. At the same time, it could be a contract where only the ad people see the numbers and not the writers. But either way, I think there needs to be a little bit more transparency with streaming services giving their numbers. We'll talk about that in Succession too. You know what I mean? Ooh. In Succession, that becomes an issue as well with the numbers of a streaming service. But there's a lot more in and out, but I feel like those are the big ones that I'm kind of hearing that they're fighting for.
That is. And I guess to further that, to give an idea of like what projects haven't been affected so far. Yep. I think this was yesterday. The Disney Plus series Daredevil Born Again for the MCU. The production is currently suspended due to the writer's strike indefinitely, I guess. However, the House of the Dragon and the Rings of Power are continuing. Which is a little contentious.
It's a little contentious because they're just saying we don't need a writer on set, and then the writers are technically producers, so they're saying, well, you need to fulfill your producer role, or you won't this, and this.
Right.
And the writers are saying, well, you can't do that, and so there is a weird thing happening now because writers do have a producery role, but these are all rules that have been unsaid, and they're tradition. And now at this point, businesses are ripping that apart. They're like, well, it's never really written. Or you're a producer. You have to show up on set. You have to do this or you won't get paid. So,
yeah, streaming has kind of foggied up all the lines. I just like the turnover rate of shows on every platform is kind of just unfathomable right now. Just how much content there is out there. And
it's insane.
It is insane. And like, I don't know, it's just kind of like the churning the machine, isn't it? It's just like people are subscribing to these channels and wanting more content or exploring more content. The more they explore more content, the more shows they need to feel the need to create instead of just working on one show or movie to make it better. And, just it's a domino effect. And, through that, they're just like, well, yeah, of course, we'll just use AI to start creating stories. Because at the end of the day, who's going to tell the difference? The average TV watcher isn't sitting around for credits when most streaming sites have a skip for credits, like skip to the next episode or whatever. Like, people are usually tuning out by the time the credits roll, you know. They're not paying attention to who wrote what, who produced what, you know. This doesn't affect them, but they're not realizing that behind the scenes there are so many people that make this shit come to life.
1000%,
beyond writers, but obviously specifically writers in this case. But yeah, it's when you actually stop and start thinking about all the shit, you're just like, God damn, like, it is kind of like a scary place right now.
It kind of is, yeah.
And again, I keep saying it, but just like, it goes for all industries, and that's why people do need to pay attention to what happens here.
And
don't just brush it off as like a Hollywood issue. It's not.
It's not. This kind of encompasses a huge issue as well. And people are asking, how long is this going to take? Some saying 3 months. Some say till the end of the year. Some say till next year, where the studios will actually start feeling the pain. Right now, where they're like, oh, we can get away with it because we have all of this backup content that's already kind of in the can and all this stuff. But it could go for a bit.
And the last one was 2008, so 15 years ago.
Yeah,
I can't remember how long that one went on for, but it felt like a while.
It felt like a while. I feel like it went for 3 months, 6 months. Let's see. I just closed my browser.
But yeah, that one, I mean, we all felt the effects of that. Like, one of the best examples of that time was they released Quantum of Solace, which a James Bond movie, which Daniel Craig later said, like, yeah, I even helped write that, and obviously it wasn't good. So, like, it will start affecting, but studios won't realize or appreciate the fact that AI isn't quite at that point now. So it's not like they can flip the switch on that thing and say, fuck it, we don't need you. But we are dangerously close to that point.
So the 2007-2008 strike lasted for 100 days and costed the California economy more than $2 billion.
Fuck me.
Yeah. So we are,
$2 billion. That's crazy.
We don't know how long the strike. It just feels like it's going to last a bit.
Yeah,
very interesting time.
Yeah,
and it's crazy because I'm seeing like recently they were like Beetlejuice 2 is coming out September 24th to 2024. And I'm just like, wait, how are you that confident that that's going to happen? Like, do you not think that like, I think what really irked me on that news was how specific they were on the date.
Yeah. Not like coming soon or it's in
coming
development.
late 2024 or whatever. You know what I mean? The fact that you're like, it's coming out no matter what. It kind of, whatever.
There's some other shit that's stirring the pot. Tony Gilroy, people were saying, because Tony Gilroy wrote Andor, but he's also a producer, obviously, on Andor. And some writer was trying to call him out about maybe still participating in that production. I don't know what came of that, but that's just one example. But then
that's
another
the question
one
about the producer role versus the writer role.
Exactly,
which writers are producers, and so it complicates things. Yeah.
It does complicate things, especially if something is already in production.
But even on set, people are making script adjustments.
Sure.
Even in post, people are making script. Yeah.
And it's fucking Tony Gilroy, so he's kind of like heading that up.
He's going to be like, you know what? I'm not going to rewrite this line. I'm just going to like produce it. It's very difficult to.
Yeah, it puts people in a tough position. But I'll say that obviously, some people are tied to certain obligations. I don't know. I'm not justifying it. I'm just saying, like. It's going to be a touchy subject on all fronts. Yeah. Another one was that James Gunn conveniently said that he had finished the first draft of Superman Legacy right before the writer's strike. And of course, he writes his own stuff, obviously producing and directing now Superman Legacy. So it's like, okay, well, obviously that is like your little pet project, and you kind of want to keep pushing that.
Yeah.
Uphill, because he's also taken over the whole DCEU or whatever.
Yeah.
So, like,
I like to think that James Gunn. Well, I think everybody knew this was coming, And I'd like to think he is in solidarity with the writers, the WGA.
Sure.
And, he is running a whole studio now, the DC studios.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure he worked hard to finish that draft right before the bell rung for the WGA strike, You
think he's proud of it?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's a draft, so he can always go back to fix it,
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like hands off keyboards, no more writing.
Yeah, hands up.
Like, is that really? But yeah, no, it's going to be an interesting couple of months, and we're about to talk about one or two things that are upcoming. One of those upcoming projects that you're wondering, like, okay, is this really going to happen though?
Oh my god! Okay, I just looked at this on our doc. I can't believe this is coming out soon. Okay, but spoiler alert, you'll find out soon. Some more shows that are coming that are on pause because of the strike. Abbott Elementary, Big Mouth, which is on its finale apparently. Blade, Cobra Kai, Evil, Hacks, late night talk shows, Loot, Severance, Stranger
SNL.
Things. Saturday Night Live, and Yellow Jackets. So those are the shows that are those are the shows that are currently on hold for the writer's strike, and I'm sure more will be on hold. Cool. So that's a writer's strike. We're going to go on to some happier news, I guess. Ed, what do we got going on?
Yeah, talking about productions that you're still wondering if they're actually going to happen.
Yeah. Soon this podcast will become a reality show podcast where we only talk about reality shows or animation. You know what I mean? There'll be no more movies to review. Everything will be dry.
No, my friend. That's when we have retrospective reviews.
Okay.
That's when you get to watch Saving Private Ryan and stuff like that. It'll
become a retrospective podcast, and then we'll start doing. It'll be a ranking podcast. So who knows? Ooh. This writer's strike might change our own podcast. We'll see.
Exactly. We're all into some stormy seas ahead. But anyway, yes, a production that is coming up, and who knows where the script is at, but is Gladiator, Ridley Scott's long-awaited sequel for Gladiator.
We've all been waiting for it. Couldn't sleep.
The title is yet to be determined, but I hope to God it doesn't stay as Gladiator 2. That would be the worst. But latest news is that Pedro Pascal has joined the cast, along with Connie Nielsen, who played the woman character in the first one.
She did. You're right. I had to look her up.
Why am I blanking on that name?
I don't know. I keep getting, because she was in Wonder Woman, so all I see is Wonder Woman photos.
Because she was the mother. Yeah. And she's Danish. Gladiator.
Connie Nelson played is it Lucia or Lucia? Lucilla. Okay, so wrong on all fronts. Perfect. Okay,
that's all right. But yes, so she's returning as Lucilla, and they are joining Denzel Washington. We've got, oh my God, why am I blanking on this? Who's that Irish guy? Paul Mescal, thank you, and Barry Keoghan.
The other Irish guy.
Yeah. So yeah, it's shaping up to be a pretty cool cast, actually. Like, I'm very intrigued.
I wish we had a historian here. I mean, like, how long were the gladiators like a thing? Like, was that like
1,000 years, probably? Yeah.
1,000 years?
Yeah.
No, it can't be. They couldn't have been that long.
How long was the Roman Empire?
How long did
Gladiator?
No, I don't want to say
games exist in Rome. Nearly 1,000 years.
Damn! 1,000 years? The fuck? That's a long time.
I mean, the Romans
were crazy.
Damn,
1,000
century
years.
BC and reaching that peak between the 1st century BC and the 2nd century AD. So that's like 300 years right there.
Wait, no, 1,000 years? That can't be right. You're telling... Wait, what?
I'm not saying that brief period is, but before and after that, I'm sure it still went on. Christians disapproved of the games because they involved...
Well, obviously, death.
Yeah,
involved death.
But also like pagan rituals. I'm just reading Google here.
Well,
and
don't get me started with that because Christianity also adopted a lot of pagan rituals too. So,
yeah, they talk about a guy coming back from the dead. Let's calm down.
Also, the birth. Never mind. We're not going to get into that. So, great. Gladiator 2. It's crazy because, like,
Gladiator Vol.3.
Gladiator Vol.3. No, it's crazy because pirates lasted for like 10 years or 15 years. It was a very short time.
But there's always been like variations of pirates, no?
Yeah, but the peak of it was like only, I would say, 20 years, and then they were outlawed pretty quickly.
Interesting.
That was one of the things I was completely surprised about how long. Golden age of piracy was between 1710 and 1730, 20 years.
Wow.
But there did happen. Let's see, pirates were around from 1660 to 1730. So probably in the 1600s, it was like early pirating, but 1710 to 1730 is when we got like all the Blackbeards and stuff. But
yeah, the legend.
20 years. That's why it's kind of like 20 years West, compared to 1,000. Wow.
Yeah. Bring Gladiator games back.
No.
Another thing coming out eventually, or I guess not eventually, but June 22nd is the second season of The Bear.
I can't believe how fucking fast this is here. I would expect a 2024. I didn't know this until I looked at our personal doc of news. It's coming out this summer.
Is it possible that they had just like the second season pretty much jotted out?
I thought that they went into it thinking this is a one-season deal, but I guess...
You think so? I mean, the way it ends, though, I feel like maybe they have like a 3 or 4 season structure.
But there's no...
Maybe.
Right, okay, maybe you're right. But I couldn't imagine they already were like budgeted for a season 2. Maybe they went...
Oh, sure.
Maybe they hit the ground running after they were... Because I think when the first couple episodes dropped, they could
tell it was...
They were like, all right, just
already a smash.
Go. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Which...
All right.
I wanted to bring this up when we mentioned the Rings of Power. One thing that the showrunners of that show said was that they knew what the last shot of the 5th season was going to be.
Cool. Yeah.
So I do wonder, like, how much was actually developed pre-strike, and again for this. But I mean, they announced the second season like immediately after the first. So
I feel like they're pretty prepared. I think
that's been a whole year.
It has been. I think people.
Basically.
The only reason that people are, if they are against it, is just like there'll be no writers on set.
Sure.
And so I think that's the only thing. But I imagine,
etc. Okay. Well, there you go. What a nice surprise for you then. June 22nd, second season. And that's coming out on FX and Hulu. Now, this is the news I'm really excited for.
Dune.
I guess I'm curious to see... Yeah, well, Dune. Did you also watch the Oppenheimer trailer, or are you avoiding it?
No, I watched it because I saw Guardians on the IMAX theater, and so I saw... I've seen this trailer. Is this the one where...
It's the newest one that they...
Yeah, it's the one where I just recently learned that Albert Einstein is in the movie.
Yeah.
And is this the trailer where his hat falls off from his head?
Yeah, I just imagine...
That is so weird. I don't know why that irks me. Every time I see it, it just seems like, what the fuck is happening?
You know what I think when that happens?
What do you think?
Well, that's like, first off, that's just like Christopher Nolan's charming notion of, just like levity.
Okay.
In this movie. But like, I just picture him like off camera pulling an invisible string for that hat to blow off on purpose. Again, to make it look charming. I don't know.
It feels like, I guess charming, you're right. It just feels like an odd
thing to put in the trailer.
Like a mistake, like, an outtake where they like it slipped in, because I'm like, oh yeah, this is intense. This is a drama. Blah, 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 blah. And then I see this hat flying off this guy, kind of like cartoonish, like a comedy, and I'm like, what is happening? Yeah. Yes, sorry. 2 trailers, Oppenheimer, Dune Part 2. I've seen both of them. Let's begin.
Okay, great. Well, let's start with Dune Part 2. Okay. You watched it. What did you think?
Yeah, I you know what? I
can't remember what your feelings were towards Dune.
The first Dune?
Yeah.
So I think Denis Villeneuve is a great director. He's able to really ground it and able to take advantage of how to shoot things. I love the way he shoots things. But for me, at the very end, I felt a little bit unsatisfied with how Dune Part 1 ended, because it really felt like, okay, now let's begin.
Right.
And then now the movie's ended. And so I just felt like I watched a prologue and not a full movie. But I'm excited to watch Part 2 to kind of get the complete story. Yeah. I think the trailer for me was good. I wasn't like, let's fucking go with the trailer. But I know they're hiding the sandworm for that reveal, maybe for something else, maybe a little something special.
Sure. I mean, yeah. I mean, we've already met the sandworm. Yeah, you see a sandworm.
Oh, we see. Well, I guess I forgot. Yeah, but it was just so.
I get what you mean, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is a shot when Jessica and Paul escape the desert just in time, and one comes out the sand and looks down on him.
Yes.
But maybe we'll see like a bigger one. But yes, like I'm looking forward to that. And to your point, I think like Dune the first one was so well done, but it did leave you kind of unsatisfied. But because it was so well done, it had me all intrigued. That's why I'm so excited for the second one, is to see how it concludes. And it does look fucking epic. We also get our first look at Florence Pugh as Princess Irulan, who's going to be the daughter of Christopher Walken, who we didn't see in this trailer, which I thought was interesting. I'm looking forward to that big reveal. Mm-hmm. And then we also got our first look at Austin Butler.
Yeah.
As the nephew. As the nephew of the Baron Harkonnen, the big fat
Drax
dude.
Character?
It's the Drax's character's uncle, also.
Okay.
I think they're related.
I was really waiting to hear him speak in this trailer.
Well,
so we're gonna have to wait and see.
I can't wait. It's gonna, there are gonna be so many memes and shit like that. It's just like, welcome to Arrakis, baby. That's what I'm doing, baby.
I'm sure he'll do a good job. I'm just curious to hear his other voice. It's like when I heard Florence Pugh when she was in Black Widow. That was the first time I've actually ever seen her in a movie. Was the Black Widow movie?
Oh, okay.
And I didn't see Midsommar except until yesterday. I did. And so
we have to talk about that then too.
But every time I hear her, it's like, oh, she has this Russian accent. So now every time I hear Austin Butler, it's like, oh, he's got this Elvis accent. So I'm waiting to hear what he actually.
But Florence Pugh is actually British, right?
I didn't know that, and I don't know what. I honestly, I kept that as a mysterious thing for me. I was like, I don't want to know what she is. To me,
I don't know where she's from.
She's perfectly as Yelena as a Black Widow. She's great. I don't want to know her accent. But yeah, I guess she's British. That's fantastic. Where does she come? Sussex?
I actually don't know, so I won't go down that rabbit hole. But sporting another American accent in this one, so there you go.
There you go.
It doesn't matter. She's from Arrakis. No, she's not. But I don't really know where she's from in this.
You don't.
So very excited for that.
It'll be good. I'm excited. I'm excited to see it. It's an event movie for sure.
It will be an event. Yeah. November 3rd.
November. Okay.
November 3rd.
Interesting.
So tune in. Florence Pugh is also showing up in Oppenheimer. And we got a glimpse of her in the latest trailer. She plays Robert Oppenheimer's, I want to say they were like fiance for a time, and then they broke off the engagement.
Oh, okay. Because then he ends up with Olivia Wilde, right?
Emily Blunt.
Oh, yeah.
He ends up with Emily Blunt, who plays Kitty Oppenheimer. And her name, Florence Pugh's character is Jean something. Anyway, she, they continued an affair after Robert. I guess maybe that's a spoiler. I don't know.
Oh, it's fine. It's history, so it's fine.
It's history, yeah. But yes, anyway, they had an ongoing relationship after Robert.
They broke up.
Got married, and after they broke up.
His first name is Robert Oppenheimer?
Yeah, Robert.
Okay.
J.
I see. I just learned something here.
Oppenheimer. Yeah.
What if the film was just called Robert?
Oh, he had a nickname called Opie.
Opie, okay. What? Also, what a name! What a last name, Oppenheimer. Yeah. Like that's a good name.
It has It carries weight to it.
It does,
right?
You're born
and maybe
into the
because
way.
We associate it with the yeah. I was born in the bomb.
Molded by it.
So this just kind of gave us our first real big look at the whole story.
It got me excited for sure.
Yeah,
watching this trailer.
We get to see the development of the bomb, the aftermath, I guess more of his private life again with Florence Pugh and Emily Blunt, and then his interactions with military personnel, including Matt Damon, and then like politicians like Robert Downey Jr.'s character. Yes. Which will be playing like in the aftermath of World War II. That'll be like the, I guess when he's called to the Senate in regards to his communist ties, etc. And then
this is going to be, let's see.
So it spans like 40 years, I think Chris Nolan said.
Okay. It's going to be crazy because it's 2 hours and 30 minutes and he's in like every fucking scene is what I heard. This is a testament to like how, because I know he wanted to play Batman. He wanted to be all these lead roles and now he's finally showing up, really giving it. You are in every scene. Yeah. So it'll be exciting.
So I'm ready for it. I'm hoping this is like a great performance. I know it will be. I just hope that Christopher Nolan's style of directing doesn't stifle his performance.
I think I hope so too. I think I do, and I think that he has such a strong hold on his performance and his talent that even whatever Nolan's weaknesses in directing, I think he's able to still hold the ground. He's still able to bring it, even if Nolan may not be able to bring it.
Well,
the way
the only time he's led somebody to an Oscar nomination was with Heath Ledger, obviously.
Right.
And
whoa,
yeah.
Oh my god, I never thought about
that. Yeah.
Fuck.
Inception didn't even get any acting noms. Inception, Interstellar, which is like one of his more emotional movies.
I have a feeling he'll get nominated for this.
I hope so. Truly. Yeah. But yeah, so that one looks great. I will say, like, whenever I read the book, I'm still reading it because it's so fucking long and I'm a terrible reader. But all I picture is Cillian Murphy as Oppenheimer. Like,
that's awesome.
No, having that imagery, it just makes it flow. Yeah. So, I'm excited. We're excited out in July.
We're excited about all these movies coming out. We're also excited to talk about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Holy shit. This is James Gunn's...
Anyway.
Hooked on a feeling. This is James Gunn breaking out, not just doing 70s music. My God, he's doing 80s, 90s, 2000s, all kinds of music in his soundtrack. This is a very straightforward plot. Okay, after Rocket is mortally injured. Okay, sorry. First off, spoilers. There will be spoilers in Guardians of the Galaxy. So come back and listen to this episode. We have in our show notes, in the description, we have a breakdown of all the time codes of when things happen. When the news, when the feature discussion. So if you forget, just go look at our description, jump right back to when we talk about Guardians of the Galaxy. So Guardians of the Galaxy, after Rocket is mortally injured after an attack from Adam Warlock, the Guardians go on a quest to save their friend, whilst also determining their places in the galaxy and whether or not that means staying together. It's also a closing of these Guardians, also a closing for James Gunn in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Sure, he could return in many, many years, but he will be focused at the DCU, and so this is a goodbye in multiple ways. Yeah, I mean, where do you begin?
I know, and this is going to be interesting because if one of us didn't like it, we don't have Miguel to balance
it out. Yeah.
Take sides.
I guess I'll start off. How about that?
Go for it. Yeah.
Okay, so
this will be our staging. This is your number one pick for highest grossing movie of the summer.
I made a big mistake. I'm going to say that. But the reason I'll explain the reasoning why I made a mistake.
Well, let me say this. I mean, I'm sure there's a good reason, but I'm not judging you. I had it as number 2.
Yeah.
And we won't know for sure, Luis, until this next weekend. No, this next weekend.
Oh, right, the drop.
We'll get an idea of just how far it will get. Yeah. So
I made a mistake. I made a grave error here. Not because this movie isn't bad, and I think this is a great movie because what I've seen and what I agree with is that this is a movie first and Marvel movie second, where they are focusing on these people's emotional journey and really taking time with that instead of kind of setting up future stuff, you know?
Yes.
And James Gunn does a really good job of really being silly and wacky, and especially in this, being pretty traumatic and having body horror and kind of scary shit happening in this thing, tying that in with emotional beats. So you have all these things and then emotion. But really what I found myself experiencing when I watched this movie was having to readjust what I was watching.
Mm-hmm.
Because
you were watching it?
Yeah, I did not expect to watch what I was watching. So the whole time I'm like, okay, wow, this is a different take. Like, I just feel we're really dealing with a difference, like the other side of the Guardians, you know, the dark side of the moon, the traumatic, the real, the origin story, and it doesn't come lightly, but it's a truth, and it does affect all of these people in a specific way. So I found myself really having to adjust with that. It's not a happy-go-lucky Marvel movie that we're typically seeing. Yes, it has comedic jokes, but there's a lot of traumatic stuff, a lot of traumatizing stuff. That's like super, like I said, body horror almost, where you see people melding and molding and cutting. And I mean, I did feel uncomfortable at times. I was like, is this a horror movie that I'm watching? Because he's had this experience with movies like Slither in the past, where he's kind of able to bring this body horror gore into it. You know, when they're being built, when they're being destroyed, when they're being morphed, when we see the, what's his name? The villain's, the High Evolutionary's face.
Yeah.
I was completely taken aback by this, you know? And so I didn't expect all of this, but I loved how simple it was in the sense where we have one goal, you know, we're here to save Rocket, and it got going right away. It didn't have all these extra little things that needed to set up where, oh, Kang is coming, or, you know, look at all these other heroes that we could reach out to. It was just like, we need to save Rocket. They did split up time with all the Guardians where, you know, Mantis was dealing with her thing. Nebula was dealing with her thing. Quill was dealing with the loss of Gamora and introducing Gamora. And I did like how they finalized Gamora and Quill, where it was like, yeah, we're not going to be together, but, you know, there's an understanding there. And I thought that was something very real.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of intention that happens in this movie that I like. And, you know, if a director has a lot of intention, man, I'm game. I'm pretty much happy if you have intention and know what you're doing. I'm happy to be on board. And that's what James Gunn did. I did have a lot of time readjust. The only thing I think that stuck out at me, a couple things, was the Adam Warlock portion of the story. I didn't really feel like it added anything, and I feel like it was just kind of like they set it up in Guardians of the Galaxy Vol.2, and they set it up, and then James Gunn had this really good idea, and he's like, shit, I have to include Adam Warlock into this thing. At least that's what it felt like to me, because it pulled a lot of attention away from what was going on.
Yeah.
And yes, thematically, maybe Adam Warlock was going through things that the Guardians were going through, but for me, just
it's an extra character.
yeah, it was just like a random character that comes in. It's like, who are you? Why are you involved? Really,
Yeah.
I feel like I could be without him.
Yeah.
But another thing
He
I
kind
wanted.
of.
Yeah,
Sorry,
go ahead. No,
Well,
yeah.
he's just kind of, by the end of it, he's basically just comic relief.
Yeah, and it's just like we do have Drax for that, and multiple people are hunting him down. So
All of them,
why are we
really.
focused
Yeah.
on you? Everyone is. Why are we focused on you? And I of course I enjoyed Adam Warlock. I just didn't. I felt like if there was something I had to critique on, that's what it would be. And then another thing I really liked about this was James Gunn's ability to have jokes, but also vulnerability and emotion. Where I feel like the previous movies that we've seen, specifically Ant-Man and Thor: Love and Thunder, it was a lot of jokes and there wasn't enough room for vulnerability.
Yeah.
And that was like a huge thing about Thor. I was like, my God, I wish there was room for vulnerability, for emotion.
To slow down a little bit. Yeah.
Slow down. It's so important. And here, we really did that because it was so traumatic, but they did sprinkle in jokes. Some went on a little too long again, which is whatever, which is fine. But I did like how they managed it well. I mean, basically because Marvel's been doing jokes badly these past two times, they're just like slamming you over and over and over again. Not really jokes, they're just like, oh, quirky,
awkward banter. Yeah,
awkward banter is it's like they took what Iron Man. I mean, because you could say, oh, Iron Man does this like kind of quirky, funny banter, but it has a purpose and it's part of his character. I feel like people
that's
take
Robert
that.
Downey Jr.
And it's Robert. Yeah,
they're basically just trying to copy that
the melody of that kind of the way he talks and his jokes, and it's like even when he does it, there is still a little bit of intent. There's still character. There's a reason why he does it. But
absolutely,
sometimes they just do it just to do it. And here they, I don't know. I just like how they diversified it a bit. And then I really liked the High Evolutionary. I think it was a good villain. I think it's always difficult to construct villains not wanting to, like, I want to destroy the world, because I think this was a completely different thing where it didn't have any, world-ending stakes. It was just like his own thing. It was a very personal, I'm going after Rocket. I want Rocket because I'm insecure. I'm rebuilding all of these people. I'm creating everything. This is all because of me. But it's, he is just so, he hates himself that he has to create all these other things that are, I don't know.
Yeah.
But
Chuck Woody Iwuji.
Yes.
Who's also been he was in Peacemaker. I remember that now. John Wick Chapter 2.
But let me hear you, Ed. I've been talking a lot.
No, you're fine.
I vomited everything. Let me hear from you.
Okay, so first off, I will start by simply saying I did actually enjoy this film. I don't think I was skeptical going into it, though I do believe, I guess I was like a little skeptical just because of all the hype surrounding James Gunn right now.
Right.
Like a majority of what I've seen him do has exclusively been, it's all been superhero movies, basically. Between this and Peacemaker and Suicide Squad, I didn't see Slither. Right. So, and I'm just like, okay, like the guy can carry a good comedy ensemble. I just, I wasn't a huge fan of Volume 2 either. So, I...
Absolutely. And I was worried about Volume 3 because Volume 2 for me just didn't hit that punch. And
yeah, like the first one. And I think after this one, and we can talk about it again later, but I would say I prefer this one to the second one, definitely.
Yeah, I agree.
This is a movie that also assumes that, it's already got established characters. You're already familiar with everybody.
For sure.
So you just get thrown into it. And that's great. Like, you don't want to have to reintroduce yourself every time. But I was also, to a lot of what you were saying, I was surprised in the direction that it went on a lot of things. The trailers, I guess, did a good job at making you think that everyone was going to die, or somebody at least. But spoiler, that was obviously not the case, and
everyone else died. They didn't die, but everybody else
but
did.
It felt earned. Like, it didn't feel like a cop out. It felt genuine. I maybe, like, one complaint I would have had in that regard was that maybe it was one too many red herrings. I feel like everybody in the Guardians at one point came close to dying. They had a moment where they were like, maybe except for Gamora, who I feel like obviously she's had her death. It would be redundant to kill her again, I guess, I for sure felt Rocket was going to kick the bucket. No, but like I said, it felt earned, and I was grateful in the end that they didn't get killed. It was nice. It was a nice twist that the third movie doesn't necessarily have to kill anybody,
exactly,
but still have the stakes. Like, it didn't feel, like I said, it didn't feel like a cop out that somebody didn't die, like, heaven forbid. But and I don't know why, that's just kind of what we've come to expect. And again, the trailers did a good job of making you think this was going to be a fucking tragedy.
Is Quill going to die? Is Drax going to die? Is Rocket going to die?
At one point in this movie, you'd think that one of them is going to die. Like, they do a good job of kind of subverting your expectations.
I was like, is Drax going to die at this moment in the middle of the movie?
At that moment, I will say, like, one thing that cracked me up was the fact that they had Nathan Fillion make a cameo, and I was like, yeah, that's funny or whatever. And then the action scene that follows plays out, and then you think that Nathan Fillion is the guy who actually kills Drax.
Yes.
And I'm just like, did they really just bring in Nathan Fillion on this cameo so that he can kill one of MCU's most beloved characters?
Yeah.
No fucking way are they doing that right now. And they didn't, thank God. But so, this movie does a great job of subverting your expectations, but without feeling gimmicky or like wedged in like Love and Thunder did so frequently. And
I mean, it was wacky. Like there's the suits that Nathan Fillion was wearing. Like, that shit was wacky as fuck.
Hilarious, but it wasn't just like for. I mean, it was for a gag, but you know what I mean. It was like, it wasn't just like a gag and then it was gone. It was like a drawn out scene, and like it kept going, and everything felt organic about everything that was happening, basically.
Because what you do is you make them look ridiculous, but then you have a very serious situation, so it balances itself out. It's like, this looks fucking weird, but this is real shit happening. So
exactly, you get drawn in, and you're just like, God damn, you really don't know what's going to happen in this movie. And the whole Rocket backstory, I know this was kind of like a big talking point leading up to this movie, was that we were going to see Rocket's backstory and stuff. I felt like it worked for the most part. There was like some little eye-rolly bits for me personally. I thought like you were talking about body horror. When that rabbit walked on with its 8 legs and
I was like,
jaw, I was like, what the fuck is this?
That and the walrus. I was like, fuck, God. This is Toy Story all over again.
Orange. Yes, Toy Story. That's exactly what I thought. But like even more terrifying.
I was terrified. I was just uncomfortable.
Like, oh God. I texted Miguel that night too. I was just like, hey man, you're talking about maybe taking Forrest to see this?
Don't.
I wouldn't take Forrest to see this.
I wouldn't.
It would be very upsetting. But I don't know. I thought, like, I understood why. I thought they did a good job at developing that kind of backstory with the, what's his name, the bad guy,
the High Evolutionary.
The High Evolutionary. I'll never get used to that.
It's a comic name.
It is a very comic name. Yeah, the High Evolutionary. I like building up his kind of obsession with creating the perfect species or whatever,
which is bullshit, because
it doesn't exist. But the it felt mildly manipulative, just having these like super adorable, cute animals. I get it. But to add to that fact, like, they do a good job setting that up and whatever, you feel for it. And the way that they portray Rocket as a young raccoon is very touching. It's very sweet, and you feel for him. And then, bam! Spoiler alert! And I'm going to keep saying that for major spoilers. But like, when they kill that lady otter,
oh my god, yeah!
And Rocket lets out that huge cry of pain. I was just like, damn! That's like raw emotion right there. Like,
and you know it's coming, man. You know when they're like, we're best friends, we love each other. Like, I remember there was like a scene at the very beginning. They were like, we're so happy together. And I'm like, oh fuck, they're all gonna die. Clearly you're setting it up that they're dying, and then when she dies,
I was really afraid that they were gonna have to fight at the end or something. Like Rocket left them behind, and they had evolved or been developed, and then that would have been like a really fucked up. That would have been too fucked. That would have been maybe, yeah. And like, considering the creatures that we do see at the end, you know, it wouldn't have been pretty. But yeah, it was almost like it was almost like cartoony the way it happened, because you hear the gunshot and you're facing the otter, and then it pans over, and then you see the guy with the smoking gun in the background.
Oh, right, yeah.
I was just like, oh, classic. But it was, yeah.
It's a very effective move, but it is like a thing we've seen. But it's a thing we've seen. We know it. We know when it happens. The gunshot, like, yeah.
It's just like quiet. You don't know who got shot or who shot what. Well, it's like,
you know, Rocket didn't die, you know, because clearly
of course, obviously.
Yeah. So
it was rough, man. I mean,
it was rough. You're right. For me, it was a rough ride. Like, I kept thinking, which is why, like, I had it as my number one in Summer Movie Wager. I'm not saying it's not a good movie, but it's a rough ride, and I think for people to continue coming back like a Top Gun Maverick, you know, it has to be exciting and thrilling and heartwarming, and as much of a good movie this is, I think it's a little bit dark and depressing, and I just don't see people like you said, bringing their kids. That's another extra ticket. It
definitely feels like a volume in that, like, it's a part of a bigger story. Yeah. Right. And so, like, whereas Top Gun Maverick really could stand alone as a standalone movie. You don't really need to know anything about what happened in the first movie to get a full picture of what happens in that movie. Whereas this one, like I was saying earlier, like, it really just kind of throws you right in from where we left off with the Guardians of the Galaxy, and where all the characters beyond the Guardians themselves, like, where they are, like everybody else on Nowhere, you know, and, you know, just catching up with them. Anybody who's not all caught up on the MCU is going to be like, the fuck is happening?
Yeah, like, that's what I mean. There's no reintroduction. It's very dark and depressing.
Yeah.
And, I mean, those two factors will limit itself from becoming a number one movie in my list. So that
number two, too, man. I mean,
I could see this as like a number 4, number 5. Number 4, maybe number 4.
Think, and I also think it will be 5. A plus that nothing really big comes out this weekend.
Yeah.
Next weekend it does, but this weekend it's got more time to breathe. And the ratings haven't been bad at all. Like, everybody I went with to go see it enjoyed it. They really liked it. They liked where it went. They didn't feel disappointed.
I feel like Top Gun had that rewatchability, and that's why he got such a huge domestic box office number. I think it was like 700 million.
And it was a theatrical event. This one, again, it just feels like a continuation and a round out of a story of characters that only like a select few have seen the whole story develop with, you know?
It was definitely, and also, like, it was very refreshing to see a story like this in the Marvel Universe, you know, and I think this was supposed to come out in not in this phase, but the previous phase.
Right.
And so it does feel like an outlier, unfortunately, of like what's to come.
Yeah.
And so, you know, yes, it's nice to see a Marvel movie like this, but at the same time, this doesn't set a precedent of what's to come in future movies.
No, you're right.
And I think beyond the Marvels. I forget what comes after Marvels. Is it Blade? But I feel like after the Marvels, we really know what's going to happen with the MCU.
Oh, well, we got Secret Invasion and Loki.
Right.
But as far as movies, I'm not sure. Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah. But yeah, no, Guardians of the Galaxy, I really enjoyed it. Had a great time.
Yeah.
I mean, great time, sure. What can I have to say?
It was a good time. It was solid. If there wasn't, like I said, I do feel like it maybe went on a little long. We were talking about the whole Adam Warlock storyline.
You could have trimmed that, yeah.
Could have trimmed that. Like, poor, like, Elizabeth Debicki, who plays Adam's mother, I guess. She, as ever, underused. But
yes, I agree.
It almost didn't feel necessary to bring her back at all. If only to give Adam Warlock a motive, I guess, at her death.
Yeah.
But I've got to ask a question, because I feel like a dick for feeling this way about this. Because I feel like most of the responses have been positive, but one thing that just didn't hit me as well as I had hoped from a Guardians of the Galaxy soundtrack was the use of Florence and the Machine at the end.
Oh, interesting.
But when that started playing, I was like, oh, okay, so this is what we're going to go out on for this trilogy. That's a choice.
What? Okay, I have a question for you.
Okay.
What is your thought on that song in general, just outside of the Guardians?
On that song, I love that song.
You love that song.
I do love that song.
So what is it about it being?
It just didn't feel like it fit. Honestly, it felt like the actual song got taken out, and the editor just like threw on what they were listening to. That, like, you know what I mean? I don't know.
That's what it felt to you.
It just felt, it did feel like just like, oh, now we're just like on the personal playlist level. I don't know. I felt like with Guardians, the first one, there was a little bit more of a natural flow from the songs, and it had a bit more pop to it. And maybe, I don't know, maybe just because I so love that first soundtrack,
right?
The fact that the end of our journey came to Florence and the Machine feels random.
I feel like the modernity of that song is what trips you up. It's just because it's like the previous soundtracks, they had a lot of weight to it, and a lot of, when it comes on, you're like, oh, you can really feel. I didn't mind that song at all. I felt like it was.
I get what they were doing with it, and it works. It does work. I don't know.
Something about it.
I haven't even like gone as far as to think of like, oh, what would be better, like in sync with the Guardians of the Galaxy, and maybe I will. Maybe I'll come up with the one.
You come up with the one, okay.
But it just took me by surprise, and it didn't quite sit with me the whole time. I was like, it was an adjustment for me in the moment, and I feel like it took me out of the rejoicing of that moment too. Like,
Interesting.
Because I wanted to be in it, but I wasn't in it. You know what I mean? And that's why I felt like a dick for bringing it up, because I feel like most people responded positively to that choice.
Yeah.
Because again, I think it's a really good song. And again, I get why James Gunn would have picked it for that moment. It just would not have been my first choice, I guess, for the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Were you looking for something that's a little bit more
retro? Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, retro.
Not necessarily. Huh?
Was it too mainstream for you as an option?
No, not at all. Because honestly, a lot of the songs that he's used throughout the Guardians of the Galaxy are mainstream songs.
Right.
Some of them were just a little bit more retro and out there, like the "Hooked on a Feeling." That, I don't think anybody was really familiar with that song until
that became there was a resurgence.
That could have been a bit more fun if they had.
They didn't play that song again in the movie, did they? Hooked on a Feeling?
No, but they should have. Maybe they played. They did play some of those songs in the credits, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, that's what it was. I think they did.
Yeah, it was the credits.
That's what it was.
But yeah, other than that, I would give it like a 7 or 8 out of 10, which is like one of the.
I think
like
so too.
I'm thinking back on it more fondly than I did. I mean, I enjoyed Black Panther, but like the whole third act really bothered me. But it got me in all the emotional feels that it was supposed to, and that's why that movie was a success. Is it as good as The Eternals? I don't know.
Right. Well, really funny. Eternals had the first sex scene, and we had the first fuck in the Guardians movie.
The first fuck, which I was just about to ask you. I loved that moment.
Yeah.
Oh no,
it was kind of crazy. I loved it too, but I felt like
it was
dirty.
Subtle.
I felt dirty. I was like, I'm in a Marvel movie. Should we be saying fuck? I mean, I love the word fuck. It's fine, but I was just so taken aback that this. Like, so much got passed through as approved. Fuck this guy, the high authorities' fucked up face.
Oh, I love that, by the way.
Torn apart.
Yeah.
Like, all of that stuff, I was like, I cannot believe we approved all of these things. Like, what we had with Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, where Wanda's coming out and she's like coming out of that mirror and she's that was kind of like, oh, this is kind of scary. There are a few disturbing images where, he's coming back from the dead, all of these things. And I was like, oh, this is the extent Marvel's willing to go. But here I was like, wow, I really didn't expect Marvel to go this far with the last one, with the PG-13 movie. And I guess Deadpool's going to be a lot more, worse than this movie when that comes out.
But that's how that's marketed. That's like the whole marketing behind that.
I was just taken aback.
I mean, you knew they had one, right, in the movie?
I did know they were going to have one, but it still felt like, after watching all these movies,
very naturally. And
it was very
it wasn't
natural,
like a big build-up, like somebody looked directly at the camera and said, fuck.
Totally. It was like a throwaway line.
Yeah, which was hilarious too. It was like the build up to it.
Get in the fucking car. Yeah.
Just open the fucking door.
Yeah.
Like, so good. And they had a lot of great scenes like that. And it's moments like that where I was like, I don't know what the difference really was, but it's just like it felt more right in this than it did in Love and Thunder. And I know I keep referencing that movie, but this movie just balanced it out so much better.
Yes,
the humor,
absolutely.
Like when they're all in those space suits, and Quill is trying to have a private conversation with Gamora.
Yeah.
And then there's that whole bit about the buttons on the suits. It's like, no, this is blue as the open line. And it just goes back and forth, but I was just like, I'm so glad that they decided to put this in here because it just plays so well with all the characters and whatever.
Yeah, but it showcases what each character within the joke, which makes it good. You know,
right?
What I mean?
Every all their idiosyncrasies put together. It's just like what makes this gang so.
The joke.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's just like, Drax can't take a joke or whatever, and Gamora is being a bit of a dick. You've got Nebula, who just has no time for any of this shit.
She really doesn't. Yeah.
It's just like, heaven forbid, like if Rocket was conscious in that moment.
Wow. Yeah, absolutely.
But
and I love that Rocket, is leading the Guardians now. Similarly to how Black Widow was to the Avengers, it was like. Black Widow was like, the Avengers saved my life, and like this was everything for me. And Rocket, same way.
Yeah,
Rocket gives him purpose.
Yeah,
and I love that last look of Groot too, when he's like a fucking like beast king. He's just like gargantuous. So it's been crazy to see
a lot of good moments too. Yeah. Oh man,
it's been crazy to see Groot's progression from
the first one. Yeah, like one thing that did get me was when. I love you guys. Is that what he said?
Yeah, I love you guys.
And I appreciated that. Yeah, like when
that was
Gamora...
definitely like they were trying to one up the "We Are Groot" by having him actually like say the line.
Yeah. But it worked. Like we're all part of that family now, and I was just like, all right, got me. And to what you were saying earlier too, I liked the natural. Conclusion of Gamora and Quill's relationship. It bummed me out a little bit, because like, a part of me wanted them to get it. It is true. It's honest.
That's what makes it work. Is like it bums you
absolutely.
out, but that's what all of this is. It's like a lot of this stuff bummed me out.
Yeah,
but it rang true, which is why I was like okay with it.
Yeah, it would have been easy to have them get back together again, and there were moments where you thought like they were probably going to do it, and if they did, it would have just been like, well, yeah, of course they're going to get back together. But
you could have had a moment when she puts on the headphones and she's like, "Oh my god!" and like long staring like Peter Quill. He saves her. Whatever. They could have definitely forced that moment.
Absolutely. So yeah, I think it was a bold swing, but it paid off. So yeah.
One last thing I wanted to mention before we finish off is that hallway fight scene.
Oh, good. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. Yeah.
Yeah. When it was happening, I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
I just dropped. I was just having like, okay, Luis, soak this in.
I know.
When it was happening, I was like, okay.
It's happening at first.
Yeah, you don't realize it. And then when it was happening, I was like, okay, this is awesome. Keep going. Like, pay attention. Like, live in this moment right now.
Swinging from character to character. That was a lot of fun. Yeah.
It's been a while since we've had a moment like that where, I don't know, where we had to have every character coming in together for a fight,
Yeah. No, it was cool. I can't remember what the song was for that one either. I'll have to look it up. But
I haven't listened to the soundtrack for this one in a bit, just because I don't know.
Yeah,
I will though. It's very diverse.
I need to.
Very diverse soundtrack.
It is because it touches on all those eras going into the 2000s. But yeah, no, overall, a lot of fun.
Well, Miguel, I know you're not here this week. I hope you're listening to our own podcast, and next week maybe we'll get a little bit of what your opinion was in Guardians of the Galaxy. So tune in to hopefully when Miguel comes back, we'll hear his opinion on Guardians. I hope he liked it, or this will be very awkward. So now we're moving on what we're into.
You missed this opportunity, okay?
We're moving on what we're into. A lot of the things that we've been into is also things me and Ed have both equally watched. So you're kind of getting a bonus feature discussion reviews on Succession and Beau is Afraid. Let's jump into Succession. Let's talk Succession.
Okay.
We'll end the episode with Beau is Afraid. Yes, Ed, are you caught up with Succession?
I am caught up. How could I not be?
Yes. Fuck yeah. Okay, I led the last Guardians. Do you want to start off the Succession talk, or?
So basically, things with Matsson are progressing. It's election night, right?
Yes.
And so the wealthy and powerful.
It's actually the night before election night.
The night before election night.
Yeah.
So the wealthy and the powerful are getting together in Tom and Shiv's apartment for what they call a tailgate. And basically a lot of things come to a head between Tom and Shiv, Rome and Jerry, Kendall, and everyone.
Can I just say, I was so worried about Logan passing, but this has been so exciting. I think that every episode in the season has been so great because there's something to really latch onto. And it's so juicy watching how everyone is trying to move forward with Logan's passing and just, with the exception of Living Plus, kind of failing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where you have Rome kind of not doing great, and he didn't support Living Plus. He's kind of fired all these people. Jerry has him, in his palm. He can't convince Connor to jump out of the race. You know what I mean? Like, he is just flopping. And then Shiv is also flopping because she tied her horse. She bet on Matsson. And his numbers are all fucked up with India.
Right.
With the subscriber base.
And he's got some weird shit going on with his secretary.
Exactly. And then, and now we're seeing Kendall kind of pushing through, but his demise is going to be coming close too. I think that his whole, come on, brah, like his whole, like, kind of just pushing enthusiasm and confidence is going to, dwindle a bit. And
people get fed up with it. Like,
and Logan was right. Like,
yeah.
you are not serious people. Like that was done in episode 2? Like that right now is what I'm seeing is like the
through line.
The through line. Yeah.
Yeah.
You are not serious people, and we're seeing all of them moving on
without an adult. It's watching the kids without an adult, basically.
Yeah. And these are Logan's kids.
Yeah.
These are the kids you made, Logan. Like, this is your...
But, this is what happens when you fuck with your kids like this.
This is what happens, exactly.
But, yeah, man, it was emphasized so much in the previous episode that sparkle in Kendall's eye. But it's like when we first meet Kendall as a character, he's this cocky frat boy, billionaire, just like... There's 1 minute where he's talking to that guy who used to sleep with Shiv.
Yes.
And he's just like, can I just lay out my rap for you, bro? My whole rap.
Yeah.
And the guy's just like almost taken aback. It's just like, can you just speak English for a minute? Because he is so obnoxious when he's just trying to be... He just can't be straightforward about anything, Kendall. He talks like he's just been listening to humans talk his whole life. You know what I mean? Like, he acts like how he thinks everybody expects him to act.
He's very performative.
He is very performative, and he just comes across like a big douchebag every time. It's so hard to get him to be sincere. But this episode is full of these small interactions that are just gold. You were talking about Connor and Rome. Rome trying to get him to just call it. But like... there's one bit where Connor's like, and why would I do that? And he's like, for the good of democracy? And he's like, yeah, sure. Yeah. Connor has so many great moments in this.
Connor's
episode.
winning this season, I think. I think Connor's winning it. You know what I mean?
I never thought I would be on the Connor train, but like these last 2 seasons, I'm like, he's really shown his true colors, and I love him. Yeah. He's like, actually has a bit of integrity. He is still fucked up in his own way, and I think he's got his priorities fucked up, but it's like, I wouldn't vote for him.
No,
I appreciate that he's trying.
I think I feel like he's very, like, he has a very transparent relationship with Willa. I think that's come out recently. Like, they've been very transparent with each other. I think they understand what's happening, and a lot of these people like Shiv and Rome and Kendall, they're not as transparent. I think they know they're playing games all the time, especially with Shiv and Tom. You never really see them have this truthness with each other. I feel like they're always kind of holding cards to their chest. And in this episode, we finally got to see some emotional sobriety between the two of them, where outside on the ledge, they really let out everything that we've been feeling and what they've been feeling, and just kind of expressing, like, you know what, let's stop the bullshit of all, like, you and me. This is what you've been doing. This is what you, and for me, it was like every time they laid an argument, I was like, yes. And then she said something, I was like, yes. And then he said something, I was like, yes. And so it just kept going back and forth. But
and I mean, I feel like that still has a ways to not resolve, but there's still a resolution there that we haven't seen yet. I feel like this was the explosion, and we need to see the aftermath, because this was just like pure rage from both sides.
Pure what they're feeling, exactly.
Like finally, but still not really cutting to the core, because neither one of them can accept their faults. That the other is bringing up. Like, Shiv is still not being 100% about the baby, which Tom would never have said anything remotely like that, what he said. And he on many occasions has wanted to have these conversations, but Shiv is not an honest person. She can't, all of these children shy away from honesty when confronted with it, or confronted with an opportunity to be honest. they're just like, well, whatever, because they can't have feelings. But
totally, that's a good point.
But yeah, like you were saying, she equally brought up. I mean, Tom is a twat, but he's always been subservient to Shiv and her family, and she made like a lot of points.
He wants position. You used me as a way to get in. I mean, she calls that out. And
absolutely, and used her to stay on top too, like in the previous season.
Yeah,
but I mean, you could honestly just go back and forth all day about it, but it was incredibly well done scene. Like everybody was in top form in this episode.
So captivating. It was a great. I mean, because like as they were arguing, I was like, yeah, this is kind of like how sometimes relationship arguments happen, where it's funny because they stopped listening to each other and they were just trying to one up each other. They're like, oh, well, you got me. Well, then how about this on you? Oh, how about this on you? And they weren't even like responding to what the other person was saying. And they were just trying to yes, they were just trying to finally like, okay, if we're doing this, then fuck you.
Yeah. Tom was tired. He was ready to just go to bed.
Well, Tom was also tired because Shiv was not standing up for him. And
right.
Well,
yeah, no, exactly.
After they came back together, supposedly, okay, I trust you. And then here is Shiv, completely putting him under the bus again. And he's just like, fuck this shit. Like, I'm not doing this anymore.
But because I'm just playing devil's advocate for both of them, really. But like, because he has never really shown her his true character, which I feel like we see the real Tom in front of Greg.
Yeah.
Basically. And that other guy that Shiv was fucking previously. Like, that's the real Tom.
Yeah.
And because he's never been honest with her, that's why when he is finally being honest, it just feels irrational to her, but like, because she was getting glimpses of the real Tom in these last couple of episodes, that they started banging again, which like obviously is not the answer to any healthy relationship, but like they would just started banging instead of actually talking about the reasons why they might actually be getting a divorce, like down the line. Mm-hmm. And then they put the pressure of this party on them. And then, of course, Tom is getting shit canned. It's just great.
I really love how this storyline wasn't like an A storyline. It wasn't the main one. But it really has developed into something fantastic and revealing from day one. And the fact that they're able to bring it up and that in here it was able to explode into something, we really have to commend Jesse Armstrong, the writer of Succession, and just building this up and organically having it explode into a climactic event where we care about these characters at this point. And, it's interesting to see, like, the show's all about bonds. Like, you're right. What's going to happen after this? How are they going to move forward?
Yeah.
Will they move forward? They may move forward and stand in solidarity just because, they want to get what they want, but they now know the truth about each other.
Yeah.
And so what is true bonding? Like, what is true connection with the Roy family? Even Logan was like, you're my best bud. You're my best pal to his fucking security bodyguard. And it's like, are bonds even a real family thing? We've seen it. That's what's going to be so interesting is like, we've seen them come together after Kendall revealed the truth about him killing somebody, which could still come up, if one of the kids want to bring about that. We've seen them, but are they just bonding for their own self-need and their own self-stuff? I mean, Shiv has been working in the background just because Kendall has been pushing her out, and he's like one crown, one king, all of this stuff.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be interesting. I'm excited. I'm really happy how it's coming about. I love that we did get Logan's death early on, because then we really have time to build on everybody reacting and coping with his death and trying to stand up and fill that void.
Yeah.
So it's been, yeah.
I feel like, had Logan lasted the entirety of the season, I mean, going into each season, in fact, I always was afraid that they were in danger of repetition. With Logan always coming out on top. And
that's why
I think it makes sense that
season early.
No, I agree. That's what I'm saying is, like, I think what is like making the rest of the season succeed is that we're seeing all of that come into play now, and seeing, like I was saying, it's like kids without adults, basically, just kids with a lot of money and power.
Congratulations! You said a bigger number.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it's and I think the showrunner said that the most explosive episode is supposed to be the one coming up. So
I it's election day. That's the episode, election day. I can't even imagine what that's going to be like.
Connor for president.
I mean, I've been engaged throughout this whole thing. Like, even when I don't want to be, it really pulls me in. So it's been a like, I don't know, a class in storytelling where it's doing something different. And as far as the ending of all this, like, where do we see Succession ending? You know, I don't know. I feel like everyone's going to kind of fail a little bit. You know?
We'll find out next week.
We'll find out. We have a lot that we're into. You know, we've been gone for a bit, and so Ed, what else have you been into?
Okay, so I feel like we'll probably talk about this movie more down the line, providing that you go out and see it.
Okay.
I did go see Evil Dead Rise.
Yes.
I saw this after Beau was afraid. I enjoyed.
You didn't see it back to back, did you?
No, God, no.
No.
After Beau was afraid, I needed a timeout.
Yeah.
But Evil Dead Rise, I saw it like a couple of days later. Was a lot of fun. I'm not a huge Evil Dead fan, honestly. It was the trailer really that gripped me. I was afraid of it, but I was curious.
Yeah.
It really is like a fun, gnarly, scary movie. I'm still learning about your horror side, Luis. Like, I feel like I've only this last year doing this podcast, I've come to realize that you are a big kind of horror fan.
Well, I've come out to watch more horror. Like, I've been really putting my time into horror stuff recently too.
Yeah.
Like, in this podcast, I've had, like, you know what? I want to get into it. I want to know what's going on with it, like Barbarian and Pearl and X and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And this podcast has kind of awakened me at the same time. So it's been, it's been really interesting even to hear you say you went. I was so shocked that you saw Evil Dead Rise.
I was more excited. Well, I wouldn't say more excited. I was excited for it though. The
trailer really reeled you in.
Surprised.
I wasn't going to watch it. I was afraid when I saw that fucking cheese grater. I was like, "Whoa, this is like when it gets body like that type
body
of
horror,
shit."
Yeah.
That's
usually what I'm not into it. I like the more psychological.
Yes.
More like down to earth, gritty.
It's like
kind of
people eating glass,
movie.
Shaving off your skin with cheese grater. Like, that stuff kind of irks me. But when you said you saw it, Ed, I was like, fuck.
I definitely winced. I definitely winced, and there's a lot of that in this movie.
And you were like, I liked it, and it was fun. I was like, well, fuck, maybe I will. You're convincing me to go watch it.
I do want you to go see it because I do think you'll enjoy it. I do think you'll enjoy it. I do think it would be fun with an audience.
Okay.
Cool. Because it is funny also. I feel like a big part of the Evil Dead thing is comedy. Like a lot of it is tongue in cheek. It's so extreme that it's funny, but it's not bad. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But to that point, like the imagery, the visual imagery in this movie is so good. Like, it is a clean, good-looking film on top of everything. they do a lot of cool shit with. I was listening to an interview with the director today. It wasn't intended as a direct reference. It just happened to resonate with a lot of people. There's a bit of like a visual reference to Stanley Kubrick's The Shining,
yes,
and without giving too much away. But there are moments in this movie where I'm just like, God, that's like horror iconography happening before my eyes. The opening prologue and the title card drop in the movie is so cool.
I can't wait.
When that happens, you're just like, all right, this is what this movie is going to be about.
Yes.
Now,
I love that shit. I can't wait.
Like I said, it is very violent. It's very grim. For people who struggle with like children being put into deadly situations.
Okay.
This movie kind of just embraces it and goes with it. So just be prepared for that. But it's very well done. All of the performances are really good. Even like the kid actors aren't annoying. It felt within the universe without trying too hard. There are like a lot of really good setups and payoffs throughout. I was not, I don't know, but like I said, I don't know why the trailer got me so pumped, but it just genuinely looked good.
Yeah.
Visually effective, not just like your typical blood and gore body horror fest, which it still is, definitely, but it was a lot of fun. I had a really good time with it, and it's currently maybe like my second favorite movie of the year.
Whoa, really?
Yeah.
Ed, you are really selling me on this. I mean, because I didn't even know you were like, oh, it's kind of funny. Like, even in the trailer, I don't get that. But, like, wow. I mean, I was so like, maybe I won't watch it. But, like, I will watch this movie for sure.
I came out of it thinking that you would for sure like it. Just given the movies that you have watched. Like, I was thinking of Pearl and X and Barbarian, movies like that, and the fact that you were already like curious from the trailer. Yeah, I think you would enjoy it.
Okay.
It was just like a really fun time.
That's awesome.
Like, it's so fucked up, but I didn't come out feeling like put off or offended or anything like that. Right. Everything worked. And like I said, visually, it's pretty fucking great. So would recommend to anybody. It's still making solid money, so it'll probably be in theaters for a while. If you could see it with a group of friends or something, or people who... I saw it with maybe 5 or 6 people, and they had a great time.
Friends?
Yeah, it was like awesome. Friends of my friend.
Group, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, it was fun, and the rest of the audience was eating it up, I think. So
I will watch it this weekend. I'm an AMC Ace Stubbs A-list member,
right?
And this past weekend, I used all 3. You get 3 free movies a week. I used all 3 movies this past weekend.
Well done.
And Guardians is one of them. 2 more I'll talk about later in this episode.
Right.
But this upcoming, I will watch Evil Dead Rise.
Okay. Well, sorry, I didn't mean to talk about that for so long.
No.
But I would recommend. Okay. Luis, what have you been into?
Okay, I'm going to talk about this. I'm going to talk about The Mandalorian Season 3.
All right.
Have you seen the rest of it or no?
No, and I probably won't.
Okay,
unless you're about to pitch me something that is unmissable.
Let me say this. I know when we talked about The Mandalorian when it first came out, episode 1 and 2, I think, in our podcast, we were kind of shitting on it for sure. I think there were moments when they were blatantly, I don't know, just laying out plot it wasn't very artistically well done. It was very on the nose. You know what I mean? It was like, But I started watching episode 3 and 4 and the rest of Mandalorian, and man, let me tell you, I kind of liked this season.
Is it wrapped now?
It's done. The season's over.
Okay.
I was also smoking a lot of weed this weekend, and I watched all of it. So, but neither here or there. But I think if you watch the Clone Wars, the TV show, I feel like this is something that you would like as well. Because what it's doing is it's focusing a lot on Mandalore, and 1 and 2, I don't think they gracefully, technically did everything the way that I liked. It was a little bit on the nose, maybe whatever. But episode 3 was fucking great. It brought me right back in. It felt very much like an Andor episode, and it didn't actually involve the Mandalorian that much. It dealt, we're in an interesting period right now where it's just exploring is that the the Empire are now the rebels. And so we're getting to see how the Empire is acting as the second, because we know when, the new Star Wars sequel with Rey, the Empire comes back out as the First Order. They've resurged and all this stuff. And seeing the show The Mandalorian kind of flesh that out is actually really nice, because you get to see where the Empire is coming from, and you see that they're still being resilient. You see that they're still trying to put their stamp on things, and to see the roles reversed, for me, very interesting. Yeah. And you really see that in episode 3. I would recommend, Ed, I don't know if you've seen episode 1 or 2, but like watching episode 3 and then kind of continuing on that process.
Okay.
We also get to see Mandalore. The show's called The Mandalorian. So we're seeing a lot of the Mandalorian lore build out.
Okay. Which is what they kind of imply in the first 2 episodes, but...
Yeah, no, 1,000%. They really did. But I think that they just... I don't know. Again, I was high through this whole thing. But I did enjoy how everything progressed. I mean, I'm a big fan of Bo-Katan. I watch Clone Wars. So I like her as a character, and I think she's really starting to shine in this show. And season 1 and season 2 could have been condensed as one season, because the problem with Mandalorian is sometimes you have him going on different journeys. It's like, oh, well, you want this thing? Well, first you got to accomplish this. And then he does that for that whole episode. And then you're like, well, then what's the point of this episode? If we're just like, you're just detouring me on something, then why am I here? And here, yes, there maybe are some elements, but not as much as previous seasons, I think. Where you're seeing the Mandalorians and the Mandalorian lore, the Mandalorian culture, the Mandalorian as a people, you get to really see forward momentum on where they're going and their status. If that's exciting to you, then great. If it's not exciting to you, then maybe you won't be interested in this. Great. But the themes they're really playing on is like, Grogu is Force sensitive, but he wants to be Mandalorian. Bo-Katan isn't a zealot like Din Djarin, Pedro Pascal's character, but maybe she is. Maybe she does like that. There's this whole idea of like being two things at once.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's an interesting thing to explore, as well as seeing the Empire as rebels. I think the season finale was, I don't know. You narratively want to get there, and maybe it wasn't as exciting. But if you're a Bo-Katan fan, if you're a fan of Clone Wars, for me, I was just like, hell yeah, let's see this shit happen. Yeah. Let's go Mandalore. Let's go Mandalorians. This is the way. I'm a Mandalorian. You know what I mean? And so it definitely got you excited. And let's see, what else do I have on these notes? And you get to see how the New Republic is not really fit to run the galaxy yet. The Empire came in a place, they took the Republic. It was well founded. It was like they have all the resources, they have everything, and they're able to take control. New Republic were a bunch of scrappy dudes, scrappy people, took over the Empire, and now they're running the galaxy, and you can feel like that they're scrappy people because they're behind, they can't keep up, they don't have enough resources. This is what happens when people who are, the rebellious, scrappy people, like, how do they control a whole fucking galaxy of people? Yeah. And so you get to see that maybe they're not completely able to run this. Like, idealistically speaking, we love the rebels, but can they practically do that? And so you start seeing problems of that breaking down. And
this precedes the sequel trilogy, right? The events of the... This is like the middle ground.
So you're seeing the First Order bubbling up, you know?
Right. Okay.
Anyway, I think it's just I know I cheated on the first 2 episodes, but man, after 3 and 4,
well, you know how much of a fan I am of The Mandalorian, so I'll take your word for it, Luis.
You know what? Watch episode
because I'm
give
curious.
episode 3 a try, and then see if that becomes your gateway drug into.
I still need to go back and watch Rebels. I want to do that sometime soon.
Watch Rebels too. I would say the first couple episodes
Clone Wars so much.
The first couple episodes are a little kiddie, but as you go on, it really builds on the lore of things.
Yeah, kind of like Clone Wars. Yeah,
exactly. Exactly.
Just needs to find its foot.
But not to say that there aren't moments when it's just like a little bit, I don't know, cringy, but. I don't know. I really did enjoy it. It got me to a place where I was looking forward to the next episode. You know.
Okay.
For me.
Yeah. That's not nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, you want to keep watching a show.
I want to keep watching. Yeah. Okay, Ed, what are you into next? What's going on?
All right. So
I know you got more Disney stuff.
So yeah, I mean, speaking of Star Wars, we are celebrating the 40th anniversary of Return of the Jedi. This one holds a special place in my heart because it's, I guess, aside from Empire Strikes Back, it's basically my favorite Star Wars film.
Yeah.
I think it was the first Star Wars film I ever saw as a kid. I saw this before A New Hope or Empire. And so select theaters have been playing it on the big screen. So I took the opportunity to take Sarah and Lily along to give it a watch. And it was fun to see it on the big screen, basically. It's always gives you kind of like chills whenever the big Star Wars, the Lucasfilm crosses the big screen. It feels like an event. And there were quite a few people in the audience too. Which was nice, but like it was comfortable in that, everybody's seen this movie by now, So yeah, it was fun. Unfortunately, it was the shitty edit that doesn't have Yub Nub at the end.
Oh, right.
And watching that on the big screen, you're really just like, man, they really took out a banger, on which to end this trilogy. Like, Yub Nub. It was such a great little just like celebration.
Yeah.
And what they replaced it with was this just like melancholic riff-raff.
Melancholic, like standard, like
generic as hell. Yeah.
Generic as hell.
Yeah.
Like celebratory music where Yub Nub felt so, I don't know, it felt fun. It felt right to the character of the Ewoks. You know
the Ewoks. She was celebrating with the Ewoks. They had won that battle.
Yes.
Yeah. And so aside from that, it was a fun experience, a nice little one-off. Like I always want to try and go to all of these like anniversary theatrical runs. Last year they had the Godfather. I've got another one later this year. I'm blanking on it. But anyway, I always want to try and catch these in the theater, and Return of the Jedi just seemed like a good, fun family one. Like that I could take Sarah and Lily to see. And it was a good time.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Speaking of Succession, my next what we're into is I've really been as I'm working and I need to like listen to music in the background. I kind of been into Succession season 2 score.
I was curious about this, like specifically season 2.
So season 2 specifically because the intro. Like obviously everyone knows the intro, but the intro has this kind of prelude before it where it's like the drums kind of like.
Yeah.
And then after a few seconds, it finally kicks into the thing.
The clunk of the piano. Yeah.
Yeah. But it has like this kind of like slow build. And in season 1 score, they had the theme song for it, but it started right away. Like it just went right into the. And season 2 has that like little introductory, like little beats and drum. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh yeah, I like that. So I listened to it in the background, and man, I listened to the whole album. It is such a good score, and I love Vivaldi's Four Seasons. Like that is an album I listen to front to back. You know what I mean?
You're speaking my language, Luis. Yeah,
the whole fucking from spring to winter.
Yeah.
That whole thing is a banger.
Oh, that's awesome.
So there are moments in season 2, the score, it sounds very Vivaldi-esque, and so
okay.
I was just like, okay, cool. And there are some repetitive like notes and motifs that he spins it with, like this is more melancholic, this is with the piano, this is with strings and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's a really good time. I sometimes put it on shuffle.
Yeah.
But you know, Ed, if you're ever like needing to zone out and just need to like, I need to work on my taxes, or I need to work on whatever, like it's kind of good just like in the background, and
sure.
It's good.
No, I'm all about that vibe. I was listening to Mozart today while I was doing my work.
Yeah.
I'm here for it. I would totally listen to it. I think I have the theme, like the main theme saved, but I haven't listened to the whole, like a whole season score.
Right.
So, all right. Good. I'm going to do that tomorrow, in fact. So.
What's it called? It makes sense why he did the soundtrack for The Menu, that one movie, because it feels very classical, and
Mark Milo directed that too.
Yeah,
from Succession. Yeah,
from Succession. So, season 2, great score. Now that I've like saturated myself with it, I'm like, okay, now I can explore the other seasons a little bit more.
Nice. And TV. I mean, I was all about the Rings of Power score last year.
I know you were.
I could not get enough of it. So I'm coming on to TV
I'm seeing
shows.
if I can sneak in a song from Succession.
Okay.
Like not the obvious one, but one of like a subtle one, like I can't think of any right now because I'm in the pressure. But putting it in our wedding, like when you go to our wedding,
okay,
it'll be in the background. Dun dun.
Oh,
dun, 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 dun. Yeah. Just like people will be like, "Is that Succession?"
I'm gonna disrupt the ceremony just to point it out.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's what I want.
Yeah.
Okay. What else have you been into?
Okay. This is it before the big one, I guess. I've been hyping it up all year. Peter Pan and Wendy finally came to Disney Plus 2 weeks back, and we watched it opening night. So, yes, this is basically just a retelling of the story we all know about the boy who never grew up, who could fly, and whisked away Wendy and her 2 brothers to Neverland. This story from David Lowery, who did The Green Knight and stuff, basically treads through similar waters. It does some fun, interesting things in regards to Peter Pan and Captain Hook's background together, like their history together. Okay. And not in an obnoxious way where, how like villains, all these villains these days have a backstory and they were just wronged or whatever. It felt organic and it felt good. And the movie starts off strong. And I've talked about this in regards to the trailer. Once it gets to Neverland, I think they just lose a little bit of energy. It doesn't feel as much of an adventure as it should, going to Neverland.
Okay.
Or like an event. Once they get there, it just feels like an island that is very flat. Pretty. A little bit, yeah. And just like a little... it's just like everything's kind of like a hue of green... just like very one-noted. When I get to Neverland, I want to see magical things, And there's like hints of that here and there in certain shots. Like when they first arrive, you see, I would say like the trip to Neverland, like visually is really cool. How they do, like they just mix some ideas around. And there are some cool visual elements throughout the movie. I'll say this, like, I feel like David Lowery kind of shines through in moments. It just feels like Disney didn't want to throw a lot of money at this. And I'm not saying that the visuals look bad or anything, but the movie feels contained as a whole, like it held back on certain elements just to, shovel out another remake, basically.
Right.
I was, right in my my, I don't know. I don't want to sound too harsh here. I will just say Jude Law was definitely miscast as Captain Hook.
I think so too. It didn't feel right.
It doesn't feel right. He is good in quieter moments, but that's just kind of the actor that Jude Law is. When it comes to the more theatrical moments,
he seems so dramatic. He seems like a theatrical guy, and I feel like
Captain Hook.
Captain Hook.
Yeah.
Sorry, Captain Hook. And I feel like Jude Law would, like, he's good for like realistic, down to earth, and maybe it felt too, I don't know, theatrical. Like, even though Hook is a theatrical character, but it's just it felt forced. It didn't feel like it fit.
It
like
does.
You said, Jude Law.
And those it's kind of telling from the moment he walks in. You're just like, you're not selling it to me. Yeah. And like I said, there are some quieter moments between him and Peter Pan that do hit, I feel like. But overall, they could have gone with someone so much better, or at least suited to the role.
Yeah.
And one thing that struck me was, you're familiar with Alan Tudyk?
Yes.
Okay, so he plays the father.
Okay.
Why am I blanking on his name? It doesn't matter. Mr. Darling. And he, traditionally in the telling of Peter Pan, the actor who played the father usually ends up playing Hook.
Yes.
And it struck me, like, at the end of this movie, when Alan Tudyk shows up again, that he should have definitely played Captain Hook.
Oh, 1,000%. That sounds like totally good casting.
And I feel like Disney just did the obvious thing because Jude Law is a name that people recognize.
Jude Law's a name. He's got gravitas and all this stuff. So you think that he can...
Yeah, but Alan Tudyk has been a part of the Disney family for a while. Like, he's done various amounts of voices for all these different animated movies. Was K2SO in Rogue One.
Right.
But man, when that hit me, I was just like, why wouldn't you do that? Like, even if the rest of the movie stayed the same, but you had Alan Tudyk as Captain Hook hamming it up, it would have been great. I think it would have made the movie that much more fun, that much more theatrical.
Yes.
I think when Jude Law comes into it, he really just kind of knocks the wind out of it. To that effect, also, I feel like the boy who plays Peter Pan, Alexander Maloney, I thought he was just okay. He was also a little flat. He was missing a bit of that, like, spunk and charm, and he was just kind of like very one-noted.
Do you think that Peter Pan and Wendy was a little bit too grounded?
I wouldn't say. I wouldn't say that. I just. I think. What's the word I'm trying to use here? Maybe. I mean, I don't think they take it too seriously to where, like you're saying, like, just try and make everything more real life and gritty kind of thing. Right. I didn't get that impression. It's definitely got like a fun childlike element to it. I just think it wasn't given the opportunity to expand on the world that Neverland is and can be. Okay. Like the I don't know. It's more of an emotional journey. And I was getting to this. The main character is actually Wendy, played by Eva Gabo Anderson. She's the daughter of Mila Jovovich and
whoa, I didn't know that. Okay.
Paul W.S. Anderson. The lesser not Paul Thomas Anderson.
Right.
The other one, the lesser one. He did a lot of those Resident Evil movies.
Okay, yeah.
Anyway, she's actually really good, and she kind of steals the show. She actually has a lot of that kind of rambunctiousness that's missing in Peter Pan in this movie.
Okay.
And then, like, the movie is following her story arc, and quite effectively, too. So, overall, as a Peter Pan fan, I will say this movie was entertaining. It's not as imaginative as it could be. I will say the final confrontation between, like, Peter, Wendy, Hook, and the pirates and all of that.
Right.
There's a sequence where the Jolly Roger is sprinkled all with pixie dust. So it starts coming out of the water, and they fight, and it's slowly starting to turn upside down.
That's cool.
Lily, at one point, just pointed at the screen and said, "That's cool."
Oh,
and
that's cool.
You got to appreciate that, you know, like. And I was listening to an interview with David Lowery, and he made a good point in that he didn't come to this project thinking that he could, like, rock the world with a new Peter Pan movie, but perhaps just reignite it for a new generation.
Okay.
And that's why Peter Pan keeps going on and keeps being remade, because at the end of the day, it is about the boy who never grew up, who could fly and would fight with pirates and crocodiles and, natives and all of that. It's the fun adventure of it all that sells it, generally speaking.
Yeah.
And that's why he wanted to retell it, just to see how he could do with it. And if I think, like I said, I think Lily enjoyed it a lot. So to that effect, I don't think it failed in its endeavor. I just think, sadly, Disney swept this one under the rug, and it didn't get all the love and attention that it should have, and it wasn't given the opportunity to explore more of the world that it was setting up.
Right. It feels like the potential of Peter Pan and Wendy, and Disney wasn't able to stretch to those expectations. Or like those.
Oh, it didn't want to. They didn't want to take that risk. Yes. Like, they're making The Little Mermaid a huge event movie, whereas this one, straight to streaming, solid cast, but and a good director.
It wasn't marketing wise, like, I feel like if you're not on Disney Plus streaming service itself, you're not really seeing a lot of.
No, not at all. So it's not like they were playing the trailer in theaters or anything. So yeah, so that's it. Peter Pan and Wendy. It came, it went, and it's gone back to Neverland.
We'll get another one when Batman and the Bold comes out, because as we said in this podcast, Peter Pan and Batman come out at the same time.
There you go.
I'll try to get through these.
Robert Pattinson will be Peter Pan.
Yeah. I'll try to get this really quick. I saw Renfield. I saw 3 movies this past weekend.
Let's hear it.
Renfield was fun. It was a comedy action movie, more than I thought. I didn't realize how actiony it would be.
Yeah.
But it was a comedy action. Nicolas Cage, great. Nicholas Hoult, now I'm in love. I remember when I first started this podcast, I was like, oh, I don't like Nicholas Hoult.
Yeah.
But now I enjoy him. So I know. It's great. It's good. It's a good fun laugh. I feel like if this movie came out in the 2000s, it'd be really great. A lot of people would show up. It's one of those movies where, I don't know, those action comedies, they really brought a lot of people to the theaters. It was a good date night. It was a good time for people to come and laugh, and I think it was just enjoyable. It's a quick hour and a half movie. Nicolas Cage does a really good job of soaking up the scene, and Nicholas Hoult does a great job too. So, if you wait for it to come out on VOD and you have a free moment and you're just kind of hanging out with some friends, I don't see why not. Put it on. Could be fun.
Okay.
Especially if you're kind of into already that monsters thing. It takes monsters like the Dracula. If you're into that vibe, then it takes that and adds a little bit of comedy and action.
I do like a good monster movie, so.
And some of the action, like I was like, oh fuck, like it does like explore some vicious ways to kill people, and so it doesn't shy away from killing people or.
It isn't R-rated, right?
If it's not, it should be. Let's see. Renfield rating. I think it is I don't know what it is. I think it's rated R. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I didn't get a lot of great reviews, but I think it knows what it is, and if you just accept it, like you're getting a burger, but it's a good burger,
Sure.
You're not getting like a fine dine meal, but I think everybody does a good job. Nicolas Cage does a good job. Barry, I've been watching Barry. I don't know if you've been watching Barry, but
not yet.
Barry this season's been very different from previous seasons. I won't be too spoilery, but
good, bad.
Good. I think he's experimenting a lot of things. I know that he is directing a lot of episodes. Bill Hader is, but you really get to see. There's a lot more symbolism to this. There's a lot more use of filming language in this instead of like straight narrative, and you're just getting to see a lot of how people are dealing with the consequences of their actions, which is great. I think that's, if you're able to build off what you've done before in an interesting way organically, I think that's interesting. And here he is doing that. Bill Hader is a great communicator in film. He's able to rely a lot on visuals and sound to get what he wants. It's a lot more experimental this season.
It felt like it was going that way in the last season too, and I know he was starting to direct more in that one.
Yeah, so it's leaning harder in this season. Not to say, and I think that I don't know. I like that as a season finale situation where we're not playing the greatest hits on repeat. We're doing something different. I also love, on HBO when they say coming up next on this next episode, and they play like a montage of scenes.
Yeah.
For Barry, they only show like one shot for like 10 seconds, and they're not doing anything. It's like two prisoners staring at a wall for like 7 seconds, and then that's it. So it's very they're trying to hide a lot of things in this season. Even the title, even the description, they're very they're hiding a lot of stuff. So. Barry's good. I'm watching Yellow Jackets. That's like a fun young adult drama on what's it called? Showtime. Having a good time with that. And then Jedi Survivor I've been playing, but I don't want to talk about that too much without Miguel, because I know Miguel is
playing it too,
Survivor.
right? Yeah.
So we'll probably talk about that next time on the podcast.
Okay.
Any Yellow Jacket fans, if you're out there, DM us. I will talk to you. I'm curious. Know where you think things are going. But and now let's get into it, huh? The final discussion.
The final.
Oh boy.
Oh boy.
Spoilers alert. Beau is Afraid, the latest movie by Ari Aster, right? Ari Aster?
Ari
Aster. Featuring Joaquin Phoenix. Ed, you saw this movie a couple weeks ago. I finally saw this movie.
Yeah.
What did you think?
Okay. Well, I was in love and well here for this movie for the first 2/3 of it.
Okay, I hear you.
And then it hits a wall, and I'm wondering if you can guess where in the story.
I imagine the moment when Beau is having sex with the other girl.
No.
After that moment?
No. You're talking about the end with Parker Posey?
Yeah.
No.
Before Parker Posey?
Yeah.
You're talking about the when they're at the commune and they have that play happening?
When he walks into the woods, yeah.
The woods is where you started losing.
It started losing me. And I don't know if I had too much coffee before the movie or what, but by the end of the movie, I was just frustrated and a little put off. But at the beginning, I was here for the wild shit that was going on. And for a time, from what I could take away from it. Like, I was enjoying it as fucked up as it was, and everything that happened up until that point where he goes stumbling in the woods. But yeah, that interestingly, like at the beginning, I don't know if you had this reaction to it, but me and my friends who I saw it with, we were laughing like almost uncontrollably at the beginning. Towards the end, though, like I just didn't find it. I found it more tiresome, and part of me feels like Ari Aster was. I don't know. There's something that bothers me when it feels like a director is just taking the piss and really just trying to fuck with you deliberately, as opposed to, I don't know.
Right.
But like, I struggle with it. I like wouldn't mind seeing it again to see if I had a different reaction to it. Maybe just like get stoned before it and see where it takes me. But like, it is a 3-hour long movie, and towards the end, I was definitely feeling that 3 hours, and it felt like a whole other hour once he goes into the woods. So, which isn't to say like I didn't still find some things funny, like the exchange with Parker Posey, basically Parker Posey entering the movie and then abruptly exiting. I thought was hilarious, but then it just goes on and on further beyond that. So yeah, I don't know. It was a real mixed bag for me. I don't want the last act to dictate how I felt about the movie as a whole, but it really took me out of it. And I don't know what I was expecting, really. I knew it was kind of just going to be weird and incoherent, maybe, and very abstract, obviously, but just I don't know. It left me feeling empty at the end. So I don't know what you could take away from that, but it did have some of like the most hilarious scenes throughout.
I mean, it really did. It was like I've heard other podcasts critiquing about it, but I mean, I don't know. It felt like an unwavering comedy epic, like Odysseus returning back home.
Yeah.
And like his struggle trying to get back to his home. But in this movie, he's obviously trying to get back to his mother's, funeral so that they can bury her.
Yeah.
And just continually getting interrupted by all these different situations.
Yeah.
And I mean, that first fucking act, that first part where he's like in this very dangerous city and everyone's crazy and he's afraid to leave his apartment and he takes the pill without water and he's rushing over and the insanity of everybody. I mean, the way that everybody acts, it's unsettling but comedic, you know, and
it's almost like a anxious laughter that you're getting from it because you're so uncomfortable with what's happening, but you can't help but laugh because it is so extreme and almost silly, but
it was a lot sillier than I expected it to be because I watched Hereditary before this. I didn't watch Midsummer before, and I was like, wow, this is like really kind of wacky and silly. And then I watched Midsummer last night and I was like, okay, now I can kind of see a little bit of his wackiness coming out.
I watched both of those movies after watching this.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, almost immediately as like a reaction because I just I think Hereditary is great.
Yeah, I do too.
And I do like Midsummer, but there's like a sequence in that where I remember it started straining my attention. But overall, I like it. I think it's an excellent film. Huh?
I don't feel like I have a problem with that ending of Midsummer. Like,
but it's just like when she starts hallucinating after she's named May Queen or whatever. And there's just like this really long, drawn out fucking scene at that table where everybody's or her and her boyfriend are tripping.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all building up to the. I mean, it's fucked up, but no, Hereditary was tighter, more effective. I felt like, but anyway,
yeah.
But yes, in comparison, like Beau is fucking wild, and whereas Hereditary was void of any kind of levity.
Yeah,
this one is hilarious, at least to a point. I'm curious to. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
I was just gonna say, like, I'm curious to know what you thought of where, of the third act, where I feel like it gets deliberately more abstract and obscure.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you do make a. Maybe it is a situation where I need to rewatch it again, but I do feel like you make a good point about how when we go into that play section, he goes to that new commune and he's watching a play and it's being very self-reflective, where it feels a little bit forced in the sense where it's trying to, I don't know. It feels like it's pushing a lot, and I was fine when I watched it, and I was honestly by the end of it, I did enjoy the movie. You know? I didn't mind it as much. I think, this is a story about. It's funny because I saw this movie, Guardians, and Renfield, and all of them had this theme of like, bad parental traumatic experiences where the parent mistreats the person, and we now see the consequences of these other actions, and so we see Beau having to deal with his indecisiveness and how that kind of dominoed affect everything. He was like, should I get the floss? Should I not? And because of the indecisiveness, it created this whole ripple effect of his baggage being lost, his keys being lost, his apartment being wrecked, him, being trapped at somebody's place, and, he's being so insecure because of the pressure that his mom has given him.
Yeah.
Sexually
repressed.
And I don't know. It seems just so fucking silly, the whole thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just like, it's this person who's dealing with the trauma that the mom has put upon him about being so perfect, and he's so indecisive, and it's just like, I don't know, a comedy of errors. It's like, God, he's just kind of fucked from the very beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. And I loved that. I was like so on board with that, and like, because you didn't know, like, oh, is this a reaction to the pill? Like at the end of this, it's going to be all about that pill?
Oh, right.
But the thing is like by the end, like when he goes off on that boat after he's seen the dick monster or whatever, and I like at that point I just didn't know what the fuck was happening anymore.
I feel like, in my interpretation of that movie, is at the very end, I think he did die having sex at that moment.
Oh,
you know
man.
what I mean? Like the way his dad died. I think because at that moment you see the mom come out, I like to think that she actually did die. And everything becomes so... Yes, the movie is surrealistic throughout. And there's a moment when he's like watching the VHS tape and he literally does see his future. And as an audience, we're like, holy shit, we did see that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think when the mom comes out and there's this whole revelation, it seems like that's the moment when he's revisiting his life. He's almost in between life and death. And so there's an opportunity for him to talk to his mom. And that whole sequence is like, happens in a second where he dies, like when he gets engulfed in the boat and he just snaps. It feels like a very much like heart attack. You know what I mean? You could argue that maybe he did die at Act 1 when
got hit by
that car. And
it's
I'm debating between the two in my head, but I just feel like
Alice in the Looking Glass almost.
Yeah. But I feel like he died with having sex, and then this is him like coping with the history of his life. Like they literally play back moments from his life. They're
like
literally judging him,
like he's in limbo or something.
Yeah, like they're replaying all the recordings. It's almost like, you know, when you die, you're like you play back all those moments. And here, Beau is so he is dealing with the weight of his mom's judgment that's all he sees at the very end of life. And so you're just kind of left with this fucking beatdown of just his horrendous life, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, honestly,
that was the only way I could walk away from it.
That's more than I could take away from it, but I appreciate where you're coming from, and it does make me curious or emboldened to go see it again. Maybe not in theaters, but because, like I said, I was so here for it, and then it just like it's almost like there's a tonal shift when he goes into the woods. But I mean, I know like wacky things keep happening, like when Parker Posey shows up, and it just kind of like that's what it's leading to, is they're about to have sex. And he's got these giant swollen balls, and that she just dies. It was hilarious, but like, I found all of that stuff. I don't know if I just like started checking out at that point, because it is like a dead. I don't know. I don't know about you. I mean, because like it feels like such a whirlwind at first, and then it halts a little bit. Like the energy like draws back a little bit. Like when he like gets unconscious in the woods, that's like when the movie takes it down a peg in tempo.
It really does.
And so it's middling for me. That's the thing. It's like, because I was so on board at the beginning, and I was definitely enjoying it. Like I was crying with laughter at some bits. And then it just like went away all of a sudden, and I wanted more. You know? So
that's the difficulty, though. I imagine like that's what I'm thinking of too. If you're writing this, like you've created the standard of this world, but it's so like every scene he enters to, like when he's with that couple, you know, there is a tonal shift a little bit. And when he goes to the commune, I'm sure as a writer you're like, okay, now I have to really create a tonal shift somehow. And so
Nathan Lane and Amy Ryan,
and it played out like very different. It was like, wow, this is like this takes me out of it. This is not. It's kind of puts a halt in things, like you said, and I can totally feel that and I understand that too.
And speaking of Bill Hader, did you notice his cameo?
Oh yes, Bill Hader. I didn't notice it when it was his voice. At the beginning.
As the UPS guy.
Yeah, and then when they finally kind of showed his back or something, like they weren't. I was.
He's just like looking over his shoulder.
I thought that was awesome. Good.
I liked the cast. Zoe Lister-Jones, who played his mother, the young version of his mother.
Right.
She also played that councilwoman Moscato from New Girl.
Oh, okay.
Schmidt dates for a while. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
There's like Pantygate and stuff like that. Anyway, I thought she was cool, and there was one moment in, I guess it was like a flashback when they were on the cruise. Maybe not, I don't know, but it's a close-up of her face, and it's just like a really bright, moody red light on her face.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. It was very just
the lights kept shifting like from red to green.
It was like very visceral. I was like, man, how cool must that have been? I felt like I was looking at like a iconic horror creation.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just like the movie is very visceral. There's a lot of moments like Amy Ryan giving mouth to mouth with her daughter who just swallowed all that blue paint or whatever.
Dude, that was a lot.
That sequence was wild too. Nathan Lane playing this doctor guy or whatever.
I love Nathan Lane in this too.
Oh, he's great. And Amy Ryan, who I wish she was just generally in more films. I was so happy when Parker Posey showed up because I love Parker Posey. Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I mean, the crazy Frenchman who was living in their yard, who they send off to chase after him. That was cracking me up too. Man, I'm just like trying to describe this movie to other people who haven't seen it. Like I was trying to explain to Sarah just like what my issue was with this film. I was like, where do I even fucking begin? But yeah, so I had mixed feelings about the movie overall. Like I said, the last act really just kind of frustrated me, and maybe I'm just like an idiot. But
no. I think that's a fair.
But it also
I feel that way.
It feels like the movie was deliberately divisive or alienating. It was saying like you can be on board or not, but I don't care either way, kind of thing.
Yeah,
which is fine. Like, you know, flex. I think Ari Aster is a very interesting director. I'm not like writing him off after this. If anything, I'm more curious about his future films or where his career goes. I don't know how much of stuff like this I could take, but maybe upon rewatch, I might enjoy it more or take more away from it anyway.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, going back and rewatching Hereditary and Midsommar reaffirm like I do enjoy him as a director, and he's just one of those interesting ones who's also getting some really great fucking performances out of people like from Toni Collette to Florence Pugh,
right,
and equally Joaquin Phoenix. So, yeah,
he's great at directing a tone for something. You know what I mean? And I think it's narratively that we are trying to find a way to, and it's tough because these movies are always exploring a surreal place narratively, and so it's like, where do I land? Where are we? How does this feed into the whole theme and symbol of the movie? Where these movies are more about symbolism and themes than anything else. Yeah, I mean, I resonate with you in the sense where that play was happening, I was like, okay, are we just being weird and off-putting just to be weird and off-putting?
Yeah.
Is there like an actual intent? I mean, I will say, I did think it was interesting how they made this line in the movie where they said, we want the audience to be a part of the play. And there was a moment when Beau was dressed up. They're like, let's dress you up. We're going to, we like to blur the lines between audience and the stage. There was something there. I guess it didn't fully develop for me, but it really showcased at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
When Beau, kind of dies in whatever on that boat. And you're left in this final shot and you just see the audience get up and leave.
Yeah.
And you're in an audience watching this, and then now you're seeing our audience get up and leave similarly to when they're getting up and leaving. So I felt very like self-conscious about that, and I was like, I'm gonna wait for a little bit. I thought it was super weird how the parallels were happening with.
And you couldn't help but wonder, like, is he gonna pop back up? Like, what's happening? But yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
I feel like we have to. I guess we have to revisit this again.
Yeah, it's almost like the movie itself is like it's being confrontational with the audience almost.
Yeah,
the way that it plays out.
For the most part, like I think take chances. I'm always down for people taking chances, and so
sure. And I think he's earned that. He popped up around the same time as Robert Eggers, who I'm a bigger fan of personally. but they were like two almost instantly iconic horror directors who came onto the scene, and both of whom I'm going to be excited for their respective works whenever they come up. So, yeah. And, you know, we were talking about like original content. Like, this is for its ups and downs. Like, this was a unique cinematic experience.
Yeah.
I
was looking at his IMDb, and I guess he did do like a Beau short. I don't know
really?
what that is. Yeah, I don't know what that is.
Huh.
But I'm pretty sure it's way more fleshed out in this movie than comparatively to his short, you know.
Interesting.
But yeah, no, original content, man. I mean, these people, they're going for the fences, you know.
Yeah.
We're here for it.
Beau's Afraid. The wildest movie maybe of the year.
Beau's Afraid. Check it out. Have a good time. Let us know what you think. That's the episode this week. You know, we did it. We did it. 2 hours and 2.5 hours of two people. Beautiful. I love to see it. Next week, I don't know what we're talking about next week. Do you know what we're talking about next week?
Just catching up on everything Miguel's been into, right?
I guess so. Yeah. Let me look at my schedule here. This is getting behind the scenes action. Let's see. That's Guardians of the Galaxy. Oh, yeah. It's a wild card. We don't know what we're going to talk about. So tune in next week when Miguel will give his thoughts on Guardians of the Galaxy as well. We'll probably talk about Jedi Survivor, the new EA game. It's pretty cool.
Maybe Succession.
Obviously we'll talk about Succession.
Miguel needs to catch up. You hear us, Miguel? Really, catch up.
Catch up, Miguel.
Please.
But listen, until next time, it's been me, Louis G. And
Eddie B.
Eddie B.
Hey.
And until next time, I see you.
I see you.